Let me introduce all of you quickly to all our panelists, not taking much of the time. So, our first panelist happens to be Sachin Sharma, who is an international coach and founder of Wuji International. Second one is Melissa C. D'Souza, who is a learning and development consultant. Shivani Malhotra, who is a co-founder of the Positive Vibes Consulting. Dr. Krishnamurthy Iyer, who is a behavioral trainer, performance and effectiveness enhancer, OD consultant, and also the proprietor of the Kartikeya Associates. Deepak Sharma, who is head of learning and development, APAC region for American Express Global Business Travel. Anu Sethi, who is head HR at FEV India Private Limited, and also the president of Talegaon Industrial Association, Pune. Nikhil Mathur, who is head OD and learning and development at Dalmia Brothers Private Limited. And our last panelist is Ms. Sheetal Malhotra, who is a global and learning and development manager at 3Player Global. So with this, let's move ahead to the first question, which is to Mr. Ameya Karambe, who is also one of our panelists of Carnival Group, General Manager, Strategic HR, OD, and the Skill Academy. So Ameya, our audience would actually like to understand how can learning and development help in achieving organizational goals?
Sure, Pragya. This is a very critical question that you've asked me. See, one of the most important things in learning and development is contributing to the organization goals. And how do you contribute? And the most important thing, according to me, is the process of alignment. How do you get the alignment in place? So I personally feel that alignment occurs in three places. The first is whenever you are beginning a new project or a program, the program has to be aligned to the business or the business outcomes in the beginning. So you ensure that via front-end analysis or a process that you look at, you ensure that the program is connected to the business measure. And that is one of the most critical things that we do. The second phase is developing the business objective for the program. And when you're developing the business objective, it should go beyond learning. Most of the times we see that it is stuck to learning, but it should include the application and impact of the program. And when you're talking about impact, you need to convert that into business measures such as productivity, sales, quality, customer satisfaction, job satisfaction, so on and so forth. And the third phase that I look at personally is called tracking the business measures that are connected to program and monitoring them as well. So if a change has occurred, you need to isolate the effect of the program on the business through the data that is available. We want to make sure that whatever that we've contributed in an L&D to a specific program has to be validated through this alignment process. See, this process isn't very difficult. Most of the times we feel that it is a very difficult process to look at, but it isn't very difficult, because if in the beginning if you have clarity in what you want to deliver and what the outcomes are, it will become simple. See, training for that matter, or learning for that matter, creates a huge influence on the organization, according to my experience and according to my past stuff that I've done. See, it works on it creates a result on the entirety of the organization. It helps in improving organizational performance, profitability, efficacy, productivity. You talk about quality, quantity, timeliness, reputation, so on and so forth. See, I know of organizations, or I've rather worked with certain organizations in the past. In fact, Dr. Ayer was one of my bosses in the past, where we've led interventions where companies have reported about 15 to 20% of increase in profits by the impact of learning. So I've also read a report recently where IBM speaks about employees who are trained have 10% increase in productivity. So imagine a 10% increase in productivity and the impact of that on say profitability or your organizational results. So personally, if you ask me, how do you build a team? How do you build a team which actually give results, or actually delivers the kind of outcome or the business results that you're looking at? So I have a few dimensions that I always speak about. So these are quick dimensions that I will give. I will not go much into the depth, but I will just give you a few pointers which are there. And these few dimensions that I feel are that every L&D professional must consider is you should first look at alignment with the business strategy. Yeah, then you must also look at how do you create a co-ownership between business and HR. Assessment of capability gaps versus the estimated values. Then designing of a learning journey. How do you design the learning journeys? Execution and scale up. Measurement of impact on business performance. Integrate see, many times L&D and all that is separate in different organizations. They have their own strategies, but I personally feel that I come from my experience that L&D has to be integrated into the HR processes, enabling the 70-20-10 model, and also looking at the technology and the learning platforms that we are looking at. When you have all these dimensions together, or when you have some of these dimensions aligned together, you tend to get the business results and achieve business results at the optimal. That's my view about it.
Thanks, Amaya, for sharing your insights. And since we could not see your video, now it's visible. Thank you for that. Okay. So with this, we understood that learning and development has to be an integral part of the organization to thrive ahead. Okay. So my next question is to Shivani, where we would like to understand some of the innovative learning and development initiatives of your company and how you have been managing it so far now.
Thank you, Pragya. That's a question that I love answering because we are doing a lot of innovative stuff in the L&D space. So my company, Positive Vibes Consulting, is itself an L&D and organization development specialist company. We offer unique learning and development interventions to corporates, as well as some very powerful mentoring programs for individuals. And I'd like to speak about both. First, in the corporate arena, Team Positive Vibes has successfully designed and conducted many programs on complex behaviors and leadership effectiveness for many prestigious clients across the country. I'd like to mention some of the unique L&D programs that we are running for corporates. One program is called Yahan Ke Hum Sikandar, which is a program about smooth transition from campus to corporate life for the young professionals who start their corporate journey. Another one is called the Big Leap program. It's basically for those individual contributors who are making that big leap to be first-time people managers. And another program which is very close to my heart is the WOW program that we run. It's called the World of Women program. It's a special program on women empowerment and leadership. Here I'd like to mention that we have done extensive work on promoting women's physical and mental well-being, as well as their safety and security. We have successfully incubated two very powerful women-centric programs on self-defense called Weaker Gender No More and My Safety, My Responsibility for women across various corporates in India. These programs encourage and teach women various strategies to build not only the physical, but also the mental strength to face their attackers. Our second very powerful program is called Healthy Bodies and Healthy Minds, which has again been successfully running for the past 4 years in many organizations across the country. The program has helped instill an awareness on sensitive topics like physical and mental health, health and well-being of women, managing stress in family and professional life, and achieving a healthy work-life balance, particularly for women in the corporate workforce. Apart from corporates, we also have very unique mentoring programs for professionals, young professionals who are wanting to carve a niche for themselves in the corporate world. The current pandemic, we all know, has hit the economy very badly, where numerous young and bright people have lost their jobs, unfortunately, or are struggling to retain their jobs. So Team Positive Vibes, with an endeavor to help such professionals and mentor them with our combined experience of 30 years in the corporate world, is offering specialized skill-based certification courses at very reasonable costs. The intent of offering these courses is to extend a very practical approach towards acquiring skills related to their respective fields, which helps in adding weight to their knowledge, ultimately equipping them for getting better jobs in the market. And though we are running many courses, but I'd like to mention two very powerful and impactful mentoring programs that we run. One is called a certification course on Enhance Your Employability Quotient. All of us have heard about emotional quotient and intelligence quotient, but there's a much bigger Q called the employability quotient, which encompasses many, many more things. So through this course, we help our mentees increase their employability quotient so as to survive in today's tough corporate climate. Through various soft skills modules, we mentor them to navigate effectively through the current VUCA world and emerge as successful professionals. The highlight of this course is a 6-hour one-on-one mentoring that we do with our senior corporate mentors for each of the participants to make them employable and job ready. And I'm very proud to share that in the last 6 months, this course has helped many of the participants to find jobs that they were aspiring for, for a long period of time. And even in this pandemic, they've been able to do it. So very, very proud of that. And another course that we are running is specifically for HR professionals, which is called Strategic HR Specialization. This course is only for those HR professionals who are looking for a quantum jump in their career, transitioning from handling the administrative part of HR to a more strategic HR business partner role. Again, a very, a fully experiential course where participants experience the how, that is the practical application of superior HR knowledge of their careers. So these are some of the unique offerings, the unique work that we are doing in Positive Vibes Consulting, and very, very proud to, be doing these initiatives. Thank you.
Thanks, Shivani, for your wonderful insights. And we can keep listening to you for hours and hours, but sorry, I don't have the time. And thanks, Ameya, that you also finished up the things on time. I don't have to interrupt you at all. So with this, I'll move ahead to Nikhil. We'll be talking about that how exactly learning and development is different from training employees. And that's another favorite topic of mine. So Nikhil, all over to you.
Thanks, Pragya. Thank you very much. Yeah, so I think so. The most of the time, we try to talk about learning and development training as the same terminology. While there's a little difference between both of them, and both of them are very, very unique, but both of them worked very well. Now, basically, the logic Gainings works on 3 different platforms and 3 different centers, which is one is a product centric, second is a person centric, and third is a problem solving centric. Now, most of the time, learning and development is being worked on product centric or a specific problem centric. While the moment you go to a learning and development, it becomes more from a person centric. And obviously, product and problem does comes along the way. Now, what happens is that when we are combining all the both of them, that becomes a larger factor and a development factor for an individual. As we talk about, the trainings primarily works on a short term or a present goals, while learning and development primarily works on a long term goals for an individual when it is a holistic development of individual. Trainings is more specific towards what you're doing today, while learning and development is what is aligned when what you will be doing in future and not just about what you're doing today. Learnings and development is very specific, little more tangible, training is more tangible, while learning and development and a long term will show you impact and efforts. And trainings group level similar to everyone, but learning and development is very, very specific to a person. Now, this way, there are very specific demarcations between both. And even though they are aligned, as a series of training interventions helps a person to become a better individual, personally and professionally, as well as ensuring that the complete cycle of a person's development is aligned. So that's the major difference, and it's a very interesting thing to keep on talking about it for hours and hours. Is how to work on people development, etc. And that's the question. Thanks, Raga. That's what I wanted to say. Quick one.
Sure. Thanks, Nikhil, for this thing. So I hope our viewers are also able to understand how learning and development is different than the training part. Okay. So let's move ahead to the 4th question, which is all to Anu. That how can learning and development initiatives give an edge to the organization? Lanu would definitely understand and would like to know your views about it.
Thank you, Pragya. So the whole topic is in these 2 words, learning and development. So during this COVID, we really, as countries, as organizations, we were not prepared. We were not prepared that the whole world will shut down. So we learned, and we learned to be resilient. Many companies took measures to have business continuity. And also, I would like to say that the companies which were not resilient are not anymore there. So having said that, what really is important is the zeal, is the need and motivation. So everything I find it is in two components now, the need and the motivation to survive and to thrive. Now, having said that, if we really look at organizations, in organizations, there are again two things. One is people and one are systems. So systems are definitely the processes, the product, and so on. But people, now for people, we have to deal with emotions, we have to deal with thoughts, we have to deal with values. Now, if we really have to take that and the mental models and the organizations which have made these mental models into and using that really for developing for business continuity, have been really successful. So learning also creates a culture. And while saying that, I would like to say that learning also have training, skill building trainings, and competency building trainings. But what is also important is the wellness programs, the counseling, the coaching, which were not the priority or the taboo, today have become the talk of the corporates. Yeah. So we, like in my company, and we are doing wellness programs, mental wellness, emotional wellness, because it is important that we take care of our people. Yeah. So these are also the learning and training piece that really happens. And then if I go to development, if we really have the individual development plan in the company, if we have the high potential plan, succession planning, is when the people can see, the employees can see where is the growth. If they don't see that growth, they will not be able to, that's how we retain talent. Otherwise, most of them would like to leave the company now if they don't see their growth. And also on that learning piece, I would like to say that it is important that we create a learning organization, and that really creates the culture. Yeah. So what kind of culture do we want in an organization or even in a country? Yeah. So let's talk about organization. What kind of culture do we want? Do we want a culture which is only profit, or we want a culture profit with a purpose? So Pragya, when I was listening to your introduction, it was so amazing that you spoke about, your thinking is about purpose. And today's generation really is looking at the purpose. Yeah. So purpose could be contribution, could be skill building, could be money making, could be many more. But can the organization align to those purposes? And then I go another level down. There are again two components. One is inside out approach and one is outside in approach. So inside out approach are the stakeholders which are inside of the company, employees, maybe employees by and far, into department people. And we do different training programs, skill building, behavioral, soft skills, yeah, which in common Klesha we call them calendar programs. And then we also do leadership programs, yeah. But when I go outside in, well, who are our stakeholders? Our stakeholders are our customers, our investors, the community. Are we really looking at that we are creating those kind of training programs which are outside in? And that's where really the profitability would come in. Are we really, developing our people for that kind of customer? I'll give you an example. So today we have virtual launches of the cars, because I come from my previous company, car manufacturing. So, and also now this company we are into engineering solutions. So we have car launches virtual. Now we are having these webinars. Are we really preparing our employees for those kind of programs? No? And in a very simple thing, I would say in some organization, I heard we really have to do a virtual, we have to do trainings for virtual meetings, for virtual conferences. Yeah. So this inside out and outside in approach would really bring an edge to the organizations where we increase the profitability, and also these initiatives can add a lot of value to the employees, to the company, to the communities, to the customers, to the suppliers and dealers. In my previous organization, we used to have dealers special training. We used to do trainings for the suppliers where we found out whether what is the measure, because there was a little problem there. So we did training for them, and after 6 months we measured it, and then we were doing better. I would not say we were like excellent, but then we were doing better. So this is how different initiatives give an edge to the organization in enhancing the profitability of the company. But one thing I would also want to say, and I cannot sign off without that. So there are not everything which is profit. There are certain things which are which creates the culture, which gets people together, which binds them. The team spirit is created by learning and development vertical. So yeah, that is from my side. Thank you, Pragya.
Thanks, Anu, for sharing your insights. And as far as I understood, alignment of purpose is necessary. And then it does not even always has to be from outside the training perspective as well. It has to be inside out as well. So, and that will definitely give a leverage to anyone who is a part of the same learning and the development programs. So my next question is to Dr.
Pragya, can I add something on that question? I love what Anu said. Since we are on time,
Sure,
I would like to
Sheetal, go ahead.
Yeah, Anu, I really appreciated, what you said, and I totally agree with you. I feel that learning, in the erstwhile organization, when they used to be training, it used to be short term. Learning and development is more long term. What it puts people on a continuous improvement journey. It tells people about where you want to be, what is the purpose, where do you want to reach. So it reminds me of that, small snippet from Alice in Wonderland. Once Alice reaches to a point where, she sees a tree and there is a cat sitting on the tree and there are two parallel roads. So Alice is not sure, where to go. So she's asking the cat, which road should I pick the cat? So cat asked Alice, it depends on where you want to go. If you don't know where you want to go, it doesn't matter which road you take. You can take any path. So I think with learning and development, these modern organizations and for that matter, every organization is adapting best practices these days in this changing time. So it is more linked to the long-term development of people. And it is telling the leadership, telling the management that people might not change in a shorter period of time. They need time, because you are asking people to change. You're asking people to learn new skills. You're asking people to adapt, grow forward. I think it's a long process. It doesn't happen in a day's time or in a month's time.
Thank you. Because the time that has been allotted is 5 minutes, I could not really elaborate, but thank you for bringing in these topics. And
you said it so beautifully. I appreciate that.
And two things, and thank you for adding, but two things I would just like to add, because you just mentioned this. One is today, the trainings for adaptability, being resilient, for being flexible, and emotional and wellness are really the talk of the town. And at the same time, while you brought this topic of Alice, I would like to say that learning is a journey. It's like, you just keep learning all the time. Yeah. And the day as a human being, as an organization, as a country, we stop learning, I think that's where the stagnant water comes. So it's like a river which keeps flowing. Thank you so much. Thanks.
Thanks, Sheetal, for bringing the story of Fairy Tale of Alice in the Wonderland, one of my favorite movies. I keep on watching it, so I can definitely relate with the same. All right, so Dr. Krishnamurthy, our next question is to you. And that is, what do you think are the key considerations in creating learning and development strategies? So another serious question that we happen to have.
Thank you, Pragya. I need to thank two people before I start. One is Pragya herself. Very nice interactions with her in the last 2 weeks, culminating in this particular seminar. Other is Ameya Karambe when he mentioned me in his talk. So thanks to you, Ameya, for that. And now I begin your answer. What are the key things that we need to keep in mind while making an L&D strategy? strategy and implementation are two sides of the same coin actually. And successful implementation is the key, which requires a good, well thought out strategy in place. And to make an L&D strategy, we need to start from the business plan that is there. Business plan for the company, which comes again from the mission, vision, and the core values, which says why the company is there and what we want to achieve in the next 5 years, plus the core values, which is an important element in devising an L&D strategy. Core values need to be percolated till the end, and that we need to keep in mind while making a strategy. The next input comes from the competency matrix that is there in the company. And if there have been assessments done, then we know what are the gaps, and that will help us to know the training needs which are there in the company, and then make a strategy around it. Of course, the competency matrix now needs to be altered a little bit with the new normal that is coming in. So today we have the new competencies as agility, resilience, adaptability, empathy, collaborative working with empathy, and digital skills. So these need to be incorporated in the competency matrix before we go ahead and make a strategy. The other thing that we need to keep in mind is that we have a 3E approach available to us, that is education, exposure, and experience, as a complete package for learning and development. So it is not just the classroom training or the online training that we do, but also exposure to various best practices in the field, and exposure to various companies, how they are working, all that, plus experience, that is in terms of actual projects that are taken up. So this becomes a total package which we need to consider. And the next thing over there is that aligning it with other systems of the HR ecosystem that we have, aligning it with PMS for that matter. The number of man days, then how many trainings a line manager can give in that year, some metrics on that as well, to continue this culture of learning and development. The other thing that we need to keep in mind are the current trends that we are seeing today. And I'm particularly focusing on the current COVID scenario, which is likely to continue for some time, it seems. So from the employer's perspective, we have the industry trends that are happening. That, for example, in technology. So if we take the auto industry, then the trend towards electrical vehicles is increasing. We are racing towards a digital world, and the employee profile as well is the same as before, in the sense that we have baby boomers, we have millennials, Gen Z, Gen X. However, the question is that if we behind the screen all appear to be the same, and they all want to learn. So this COVID has become a big leveler. We have to unmute. Yeah, so now from the employee perspective, we can see that people now want bite-sized learning. It's not the original 6-hour or 8-hour days that we used to have. People want 90 minutes to 2 hours at a stretch, and then afterwards. So there are several breaks that are required. Plus there are other things that are to be kept in now in mind, like quizzes or some recap sessions, so that we can continue with the attention there. And this needs to be built in the strategy itself. The hybrid learning that we are all aware of, that means partly it will be through the classroom sessions, and partly through case studies, and partly through the kind of group work that can be done now in these platforms. Eclectic approach, which means that we take the subject matter from various zones beyond the particular topic that we want to do. That means the current knowledge that is now coming up on the AI, on the Internet of Things, and machine learning, etc., that also needs to be included. The current topics also need to be included in our L&D strategy as well. Arising out of this COVID, there has been a change in structures, and because of that, there is a lot of reskilling which is required, or upskilling which is required. So this also means that we need to build this into our L&D strategy as well, so that people can perform to the best of their ability. And with these trends, and by aligning it with the various ecosystems that we have, plus 3E approach, plus percolation of core values, and then taking the inputs from the competency matrix, will help us build a good strategy. Now, this is from the work that I have been doing in the past as the L&OD head in Mahindra & Mahindra, as well as now working on L&OD for many companies, mostly medium scale, that this is the, and this has given me very good results, I would say. So Pragya, over to you now with the points that I have made.
Sure. Thank you, Dr. Krishnamurthy, for keeping everything on time, or else I thought I have to interrupt you over here. All right. So let's quickly move ahead to the another point, which we keep on wondering, that how do you evaluate learning and development effectiveness? And Melissa, it's all over to you now.
Thank you, Pragya, and lovely to be here with all of you. So moving to the effectiveness thing, which I think is kind of the bane to everybody who conducts a training program or a training initiative, is how will this be effective to the people who come in for the training? And I think it's very simple. It's summed up in this one line. What is the story we would like to tell about the L&D intervention that we have, invested in, or what we've taken effort into? And of course, the normal way of doing it is, of course, the Kirkpatrick model, where you see, okay, what is the reaction of the people who have invested their time into the training? Do they like it? Do they not like it? Then, of course, the learning, which is tested through an assessment and stuff like that. Then behavior, if you see any changes in behavior for the people or the participants who have been part of the training, do you see immediate results there? And the next part is, of course, the results, which is also known as return on expectations. And this is the part that, we, or I, in my experience, tend to focus on a lot, because this is a direct story on, has there been any change in the outcome against the training objectives when we started out? And these are set before the programs. And of course, the famous, which is the ROI, or the return on investment, which evaluates the training and productivity cost. And this you can see, and Ameya mentioned it earlier when he spoke, where he said that they had seen 10% increase in productivity. Do we see it in the customer satisfaction scores? Do we see it in retention? Do we see changes in sales and things like that? But a couple of things that I would like to also mention as part of the effectiveness is, and this is taking a cue from what Anu also said, I think we, remember the human aspect of, getting into effectiveness, and not just the business impact that we're having, which of course is important, but also what is the human impact and the effect that we have had through our training programs. We need to also remember that if we are doing any of these training programs, then proving impact of training is critical and needs to be thought of right from the beginning, and it should not be an afterthought. So hence, training effectiveness needs to be built in at the beginning and in the design, because numbers also speak. And this is an important factor if we have to think of L&D as being a business enabler and a partner. And that's what I had to say in short.
All right, thanks, Marisha. You still have 1 to 2 minutes of time, but you have finished it up prior to that only. I'm thankful to you today, okay. And I would request everyone, to keep themselves on mute, because I would not interrupt the speakers while they're talking about and closing their flow. So with this, let's move ahead to the next part, which is like, how do we analyze the training needs? And Sachin, you can move ahead with us.
Thank you, Pragya. Thank you for that. I believe many people have already covered many points on this topic in the talk. So my passion is more into emotional intelligence and mindfulness, and I would like to answer this question from that point of view rather than repeating what has already been covered by other speakers. Many years ago, I listened to an interview that was conducted by Daniel Goleman, and we all know Daniel Goleman as a leading expert authority on emotional intelligence. So the interviewer asked Daniel Goleman that what is the reason for so many learning and development training initiatives in the companies not giving the results that that we expect, that the corporates expect. And his short and simple answer was that most of the companies treat these kind of initiatives as a spray and pray model, which means that somewhere the analysis is not as deep as it should be. And there are a lot of assumptions that are there. And based on those assumptions, we spray the trainings or the learning initiatives, and we pray that something would stick, and we would perhaps get some kind of results from that. So now the question is that what exactly is missing, and what can we do to analyze this thing better? What happens that from psychology, what we know is we often study or evaluate another person, a team or our team members, and we look at their behavior, their attitude, and the actions or the lack of actions, or what we are expecting them to deliver, whether they are delivering that or not delivering that. Based on these observations, we figure out certain kind of learning and development training initiatives for people, for our team, so that we can improve their performance. And that is all good. And these points have been covered already by most of the speakers. So don't want to spend time on this part. The part I want to spend is that where is the behavior and attitude coming from? And, and these are the things that are not observable. These are the things that come from non-observable parts, such as the thought process that person is in, the mindset of that person, the conditioning of that person. And often these things are not analyzed. We don't look into it, that what is giving such kind of behavior and attitude to this person, why the lack of action is there. We just observe the lack of something and we jump to fixing it with a solution of a learning or development or a training solution. And this is where I feel that some time needs to be spent. It could be looked at as a task to go in a hard to do basket. Perhaps it is for some managers and leaders. It is a hard task to do. However, it's not an impossible task. It is not something that can't be learned. So managers and leaders can take help from outside sources to create such kind of facility where they can bring out what is exactly the reason for people to behave this way, to have this kind of attitude. These managers and leaders can also be trained to coach and facilitate such kind of activities for their team. The main point is you cannot identify someone's conditioning by just observing their behavior. So you have to provide them an environment in which they could self-reflect. And this is what is missing. This is what I believe that the the core element which is missing, which does not bring that intended emotional intelligence shift within the company, and all the initiatives are just happen to be on a superficial level. And if we really want to increase the buy-in of people to go and attend these kind of trainings and participate in learning and development initiatives, then the buy-in has to come from the person, where they understand that what is the conditioning, what is my thought process and mindset that is stopping me. This behavior is coming from where? And once that self-awareness, that self-reflection has taken place, the employees themselves will be looking forward to going to such kind of trainings and learning and development initiatives. The return on investment, return on expectations are going to be multiple fold. And these initiatives will not be anymore those spray and pray model, which people have to go attend a tick in the box that certain number of days or number of hours trainings have to be done, so we can just tick the box somewhere. No, we have to change how we look at these things. And this is only done if we create an environment where people can self-reflect. The managers and the leaders can help their teams to do that self-reflection. They cannot do it for them. Nobody can do self-reflection for you. You can only create the facility, allow them, hold the space, tell them how they can self-reflect, and these kind of things need to be created. And they can take help from outside sources, or they can also learn this skill. So this is how I see that uh, this point is lacking when training needs analysis is done.
All right, Sachin, thanks for sharing your thoughts and being aptly onto the time that has been given out to you. So what
Thank
I
you.
understood as we initially root cause analysis has to be done in order to find out that what is missing and how exactly we can move ahead with the same. And then the second pointer is definitely a self-reflection. So until unless I'm aware that these are certain behavior of mine or certain skilling of mine which is missing, I cannot go ahead simply that, okay, fine, my manager has said to do something and I'm doing it. If it is coming from
Absolutely.
inside my heart, I'll be more than happy to learn that thing.
Absolutely, absolutely. Because if I'm told to do certain training, sometimes I also feel misunderstood. Sometimes I also feel that no, but that is not the point. That is not what I'm lacking. So the analysis also has to include the person who's going on these kind of training.
All right.
Thank you.
So beautiful insight. Moving ahead with the next speaker, who is Deepak. So Deepak, my question to you is, what are the prerequisites for conducting a learning and development project?
Thanks a lot, Pragya, for this wonderful question. And this question is actually very, very close to my heart. Because, I myself have led several, key learning projects, purely, on the foundations of project management as well as, Six Sigma. So really happy to talk about this. And I would also like to thank all the eminent speakers for, sharing their thoughts and their perspective, because what we are, talking about is essentially how to derive the optimum benefit from any learning and development strategy. But, before I even, start to answer your question, Pragya, let me, just make it clear that what exactly is a project. Let us understand what's a project first, because that is really important for us to understand. A project is a short-term intervention which is tied to a concrete benefit. Now, what we also need to understand here is that any project, whenever you start any project, and especially a learning and development project, the company expects a concrete outcome out of it. And every project has a stage which is called a benefit realization stage. So whenever you start a project, the end stage of any project is benefit realization. It is absolutely true, and some of the speakers have already highlighted this, that learning and development is more about change, and change is a long road. It takes time to change people and their behavior over a period of time. People don't change, because normally what happens in organizations is that the organizations, they enforce the change, the behavioral change on people. Organizations want people to behave in a certain way, but where they actually miss the part is that when people don't understand that the change is for their benefit, or when people are not involved in that change process, they will not change. And there comes all the resistance to learning, all the resistance to change itself. So you know learning is a long journey. That is absolutely clear. It takes time to change people. But when we talk about a learning project, project is short term and it is tied to a concrete benefit. So what are some of the basic necessities of running a learning project is something that I'll be covering. So if you're looking for some information, or okay, that these are 4 or 5 things that I need to do before I start any short term intervention in the learning, this is what I'm going to be covering. And basically to my understanding, what I've come to realize after having run multiple Six Sigma projects in my organizations on developing sales capability and customer satisfaction scores for the clients, I've come to realize that there are basically 7 stages that we need to be absolutely clear about before we start any learning project. So the first stage is, be very clear about the why. I'm sure that you must have heard of a gentleman called Simon Sinek, and I'm a big fan of Simon Sinek. And Simon Sinek, he always points out that whenever you start, you always start with a why. And for the people who are there in the audience, check out the Golden Circle by Simon Sinek, which covers that there are 3 aspects to anything before you start: the why, the how, and the what. But if you're not clear about the why before you start any project, the intervention will become more like a carpet bombing, which doesn't work when it comes to people improvement. So you don't want to waste your resource, like Sachin also mentioned, that spray and the pray approach. Okay, so be very clear about Why do you want to do it? How will it benefit the organization? Which business problem are you trying to solve? So, once you are very, very clear about these fundamentals, the why, then you can move on to the second stage, which is called capture the KPI. Now, what is the KPI that needs to be targeted for the improvement, which needs to be at the focus of the problem statement of the project? In some cases, it could be that my people are not enhancing the sales, that they could do more, but they're not, doing more. It could be a very simple statement. It could be, in this case, it could be the sales KPI. In some cases, it could be, let's say, the customer satisfaction scores. In other cases, it could be, something else. So you got to identify that what is the business KPI that you want to target, and you should be very, very clear. In most of the cases, to my experience, you start with only one KPI at one time. Don't target multiple KPIs in a project, because then the project will become more like a jumbo circus. So you don't want to do that. So target one KPI per project. And the best way to actually reach the business KPI is discuss with business leaders, so that you identify the correct KPI before starting the intervention. Check where ideally they should be. What should be the ultimate, the post intervention score that you should be reaching at, and what is the mean deviance from the target. So if your CSAT score is, let's say, at 80%, but your target is to, that the people should be at 90%, then there is a deviance of 10%, and the KPI is very, very clear in your head. Third thing, so once you are, very clear about the why, you have captured the KPI, then you capture the people in scope. One of the things that people do very wrong is that they want to improve everyone in the organization. They want to improve everyone in the business process. They want to improve all the teams. Doesn't work that way. You have to, first of all, capture a limited set of people whom you want to improve. And now I will talk about this, when I talk about the next steps. But it is very important for you to capture how many people, what is their role, who will be a part of the intervention. Okay, it could be the sales staff. It could not be the entire global organization sales staff, but it could only be particular region. So you got to test the waters before you start the intervention full-fledged, and that's what a project is all about. So never do the mistake of taking every other person in the scope of the training. Be very specific about that. Okay, this is the optimal set that I want to target first. Agree that with the business leaders. Fourth step, capture the pre-intervention data points on the KPI. It is very, very critical. See, you are clear about the KPI. You are clear about the why. You know who are the people. So there is no reason, why you should not be capturing the pre-intervention KPI. When I say pre-intervention KPI, it basically means that before you start the intervention, what was the score of the people for a quarter? When I say a quarter, it basically means that if you talk to any Six Sigma black belt person, they will ask you to get the data for 1 quarter. Why is that? Because a quarter shows a trend. At the end of the day, the outcome of the project is that you make people achieve a certain score or achieve a certain target. If you go to business and you say that, okay, I ran an intervention and I improved the people and their scores, the business is gonna ask, okay, for how much or for how long? Then your answer should be that at least for a quarter, not for a week, not for a month, because that does not show a trend. Improvement comes with a trend. Okay, so capture the pre-intervention data before you start the KPI. Capture the performance of the people in the scope on the KPI for at least a quarter before the target date of starting the intervention. And this data is best captured in qualitative forms, like the number of sales, CSAT score per person for the given quarter. Once you are working with people, you got to showcase at the end of the project that I have improved people by people. And of course, once you start focusing on people by people, the score of the group is on, is anyway going to, improve on its own. So fourth
Deepak,
step.
I hate to interrupt you over here, but I have one more speaker left out, who is Sheetal. Okay, and I don't want our audience to miss out sharing her insights.
Yes, two more
Okay.
steps left. Very,
Sure.
very short and crisp, because I'm almost done. So turn the data point. So, you have the KPI, Now the only thing that you do is turn the points into measurable figures, and then finally you create a project charter which you submit to the business. It is very, very important because the business charter actually covers very, very minute and fine details about the data collection, the process capability, the key milestones, and the project teams. So six steps I shared, and all of these are very, very relevant to any time based or time sensitive project that you are planning to run in your organization.
All right, thanks a lot for sharing all these wonderful insights. And Sheetal, I won't take much of the time, so let's move ahead to the final topic that we happen to have: how to build to an effective assessment framework for upskilling programs. And you know that you have a limited time of 5 minutes, so you have to finish it up.
Okay, hi, Deepak. I totally appreciate what you said, and I would want to start from where Deepak left. When we are trying to build a learning intervention, it is, and Deepak rightly mentioned, it is ideal to ask questions like what, how and when, and where do you want to reach. So it is very important for any L&D professional to figure out, are your learners ready? Are they ready to pick up this learning intervention? Is the learning intervention in alignment to their personal aspiration, to their individual aspirations? What is their learning style? Are they more of audio learner? Are they visual? Are they kind of, I will do it and then learn it? They are kinesthetic. So it is very important to know, what is the learning style of your learners? What is the business objective? Why are you doing this learning intervention? And has that business objective being very clearly articulated to your learners? I would say it will be an ideal state if we as learning and development professionals are able to strike an intersection between individual aspirations and business need. So if you're able to strike that intervention, I think you will win over the learners. They'll be with you, they will be ready. And then, if you have a solid plan, if you have created the learning intervention, you will have more acceptability and you will have better outcomes. Along with that, I would say, because today's L&D professional, L&D leaders have been questioned on how will the learning intervention impact the revenue stream of the company? What is the ROI the learning intervention will bring? Through the learning intervention, how are you impacting the bottom line numbers of the company? So it reminds me of Stephen Covey's second habit. That's my recommendation to all the fellow L&D leaders, to start with the end in mind. Like Stephen Covey's second habit says, begin with the end in mind. So have these conversations, have these self-talks in your head, have these conversations with your learners, and you will be able to have a great learning program. So once that, all that question and answer in your mind is kind of done, it is very important to do the evaluation, this current evaluation of the current skill level of the learners. We in the industry, there is a very known term, it is called pre-assessment. I think pre-assessment is very crucial, very critical. And as L&D leaders, don't feel shy away from going back to 20 people, for example, who gave the pre-assessment. And if you feel that out of those 20, two are not ready, two need some time to be at a level that they are good to go with that learning engagement, have conversations with those two people. Tell them the long-term vision, tell them where you want to reach, tell them the business need, and ask them to please come, prepare themselves a little better and come in the next program maybe. So pre-assessment, very important. Just like when you start a fitness program, the fitness coach does an assessment of your strength level, your metabolism, your BMI. I think it is pivotal that we start with assessing the skill level of the audience in the beginning, because as I mentioned when I was talking about pre-assessment phase, your learner's style. If you know where your learners are, if you know their current skill level, you will be able to create a customized learning program for your learners, because every learner is different. Every learner will use a different kind of toolkit to learn. Somebody will be a e-learning person, somebody needs more of a mentoring session, somebody needs more of a classroom session with the trainers. So have that pre-assessment, I would say have a small batch. Gone are those days when, you know, organizations used to be really bothered about, okay, how many people have you trained, how many man hours? No, these conversations are not happening in these changing times. Organizations are more bothered about, all right, how many people train, and how many people, how many of those people were able to pick up the new, pick up the live work, pick up the revenue losing positions of the company, pick up the positions for which the organization is looking forward to recruit talent from the market. So very important pre-assessment. Start with that. Have that in your mind. It's a good start point. Then, you know, second point is that periodic review. I would say during this pandemic, what my realization is that it is so important for any manager, coach, mentor to have a great skill of doing periodic reviews with their teams. Periodic reviews can really change the entire situation. So set small milestones. Tell people, maybe if I take an example of an upskilling program, give them a dummy project in the beginning, give them small milestones. All right, we'll meet after 15 days, and this is the milestone you should be able to achieve in next 15 days. So they should be able to start working on a dummy project during the program from day one. Mid assessments are all about doing periodic reviews, weekly, fortnightly. It can be anything depending upon what is the duration of the entire upskilling program. Third and fourth point is again, I would say third point is not that critical, but fourth point is extremely pivotal. So I will not spend much time on third. Third is called I would call it a pre-final assessment. I know the industry calls it a final assessment, and the program is done, a dummy project is made, the code is written in the IT language. So in the pre-final assessment, I would say have one-to-one conversation of your learners, each of your learner with their mentors, where they're not talking about any other stuff, but what is the code which has been written. If I may take example of IT, what code the learner has written in the dummy assignment, and then map the work that he has done in a dummy environment with the expectation the expectation the organization generally have when people go in a live project, live environment. So do that mapping, and if there are gaps, give feedback to the learner, give them some more time to scale up, and absolutely be very clear of the expectation after the pre-final assessment. Last step. Yeah. So last step is
I hope this is the last step, and then finally you'll be done, because we have taken more than 5 minutes.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'll just take one more minute. So last step, very important, for last step, I would say go back to the takers, for example, because I work with IT, so I will take IT example. If you are upskilling employees, for example, and that there are project managers who will be using these upskill talent in their projects. So final assessment, even if you don't have the live project for those people at that point in time, but get the assessment done from these people who will be takers of these upskill talent, who will be these will be those people who will help the organization in bringing the talent from the market. So have the assessment done, ask this very important question from these project managers: will you take these people in your team if there is a business need? If the answer is yes, it's a great intervention. Your program is successful. Your upskill talent will have great deployability, and I think they will do an amazing job in the live environment as well. And as Deepak said, when you do an upskilling program, when you do any learning intervention, talk numbers. So in the end of every upskilling program, as a learning and development leader, as a learning and development professional, you should have the numbers ready with you. I started with 10 people who started learning Python. 8 of them are absolutely ready. Project managers said they will take them in their projects. And that's how the ideal assessment framework looks like in my mind. And I think it will fetch us great results.
All right, thanks for your wonderful insight, Sheetal. And not taking much of the time, our viewers have asked not many questions into the chat box, which I've already shared with all of you. So I would like to move ahead with the first question. And Dr. Krishnamurthy, I would like you to go ahead and answer this. This question has been asked by Shivnandan. He has actually asked 3 of the questions. So first one is how to train and develop people in a factory, as everyone know that they're not too much interested into the learning. Let's move ahead with this.
Yeah, a great question and a very practical one. I I was an engineer on the shop floor to begin with in my journey, and then I used to always see HR people as a separate breed, and then that that they will come and tell us to go for this training, and all that. Kya zarurat hai is sabki. So that continued for quite some time. 16 years in operations, and then afterwards I changed into personnel management out of sheer passion for the subject, and then I realized that. The whole game of L&D is a three-legged race. In childhood, we have run the three-legged race. If you remember, one leg of mine is tied to another person or another girl, and then we have to run and complete the race. So that becomes very difficult. Three-legged race is more difficult to win than a normal race. And this is a three-legged race. Line and the shop floor, or the line means the shop floor, and the HR people have to come together. And the journey is to be done together. There's no question about it. Which means that, number one, what are people interested in? Technical training to enhance their own skills, plus behavioral training. Now, a good thing will be to expose people to the core values of the company, which is again behavioral by nature as to how we should act and how we should behave. From there we start and then come to the competency matrix, which is there, which talks about some of the leadership competencies like team working, strategic thinking, and all that. But notwithstanding all that, we must have a chat with the people who are there on the line whom we want to train. And this will be by the boss and the subordinate, so it becomes dyadic, but best is to start with triadic conversations. So HR is also there present, and just find out what does the person want to do? How does he see himself in the next 5 years? What are the things that are still lacking, which he would like to learn? If the learning requirement comes from the trainee, and that's why I'm talking about the shop floor today, definitely there is a success at the end of the road. So one is we get all these inputs, and my own way of getting it is through a very short appreciative inquiry we can do with people to find out how they see themselves in the next 5 years and what are the things that they need to learn. Now, if we capture all that and put it in a proper training calendar format and then announce it, look for feedback. And they'll say, no, this is too tight. This is too much to bear and all that. So let us put in all the feedback into it and make a calendar in a three-legged way. Both of us agree to that calendar and then we launch it. I tell you that be a big success over there. So this is the first question which you asked, that is, how do we involve the line people? And I'm saying in this field, over communication is better than under communication. Whatever we do, you want to make a small change, let's call a small group of people, the influencers, the opinion leaders in the group, and then tell them this is what we are doing. You asked for this, but we are changing it to this because to suit the company's requirements and all that. And they'll fall in line. It's best to communicate, get people on the board, and then go for this programs. A good, well thought out strategy will lead to better implementation. So this is what I have learned in my operations years as well as in the HR, and I have been putting it into practice.
Okay,
the very first.
Sorry to interrupt, but we have more questions to cover up. So the next question over here related to the same is, how many hours of training do you think will be enough for someone in a year or for an organization? Any practices of training that you can mention for MSME kind of a company?
Just somebody, the speaker before me also mentioned that now that metrics are not seen, that is, how many hours of training is undergone, but it helps to keep something in mind. I'm saying that to start with an MSME and all that, we just keep one technical training and one behavioral training, not the number of days, one technical training and one behavioral training in the whole year to start with, just to people to gear up on that. Then it becomes 2 technical and 2 behavioral. And finally, when we go up the ladder, it is 3 behavioral and 1 technical, because technical skills are required less at the senior levels. So we have more of behavioral training there. So it is number of trainings which are important, not the number of days here. To start with, I'm saying that's the best. And of course, in my earlier days and all that, we used to have a figure of 3 man days per year per person, very clearly. And later on, it went to 4 man days per person per year, and then it went to normally 5 days per person. Finally, it went to 5 days. But today, these days don't count, because then it becomes an HR KPI. HR has to do that. Not necessary. It should be done in line with the help of line in a 3-legged way. That's why it's a number of trainings per person rather than a number of days per person. This is what I would advocate.
Sure. Thanks, Dr. Krishnamurthy, for giving us such a great insight. Now, my next question is to Anu and Shivani, that how can you go and indulge the persons in... Sure.
just like to add to what Dr. Iyer was saying about the people on the shop floor.
Mhm.
So really also two things happen, and it's only in a nutshell. One is to send people to an institute called, which helped in both my organization, previous Volkswagen and now FAV, to send people to a program which is called MRA in Panchgani. And that really creates insights for them to look at personal development and also to contribute towards the organization and the community. That is one. And second is to rightly, have meaningful conversation and ask only one question: what were you 2 years ago, and what have you learned in the last 2 years? And let me tell you, what really they say is, I have learned this and I have learned that. And that is where is the meaningful conversation starts. Have them on the shop floor. Yeah. Over to you. Yeah,
Right, sure. Thanks, Anu. Now, the next question that I happen to have for you and Shivani both is there how to indulge the person in learning and development if the person is from technical team, for example, manufacturing, doesn't show interest into these sessions. So what do you suggest?
Could you please repeat your question again?
Sure. The question happens to be how could you go ahead and indulge or maybe look at the person's perspective that if they are from technical teams, how can you inculcate their interest into the training and development or the learning and the development sessions?
Okay. So I can give,
1 minute. Pragya,
Sure.
I just want to post on this question. It's very close to my heart, so let me answer that question. But the way I have done it is, I have created trainers out of these technical people. People who are saying that this training is no good and all that. I said, why don't you become a trainer? I have taken batches after batch and then trained them. Called train the trainer. And then they are wonderful people. I mean, when they come on the stage, people are already flock to them because they know that he's our guru. So why don't you do that? So all technical training is done by internal people today. And they are all kind of people who have been developed from this thing. Just spark, ignite that spark and things happen. That's all. Thank you. Please go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Iyer. So, Pragya, I will tell you what I did in this organization in FEB. So when I joined the company, there were very less behavioral program. Rather, the vertical was not really set up. So I asked Sachin Sharma to do invisible leadership for the first line. And believe you me, when we do it for the first line and then they show changes in their behaviors below, is when the below people, which are technical people, let me tell you, most of our engineers, rather in my company, 80% of the people are technical. Yeah, they're from IITs and so on and so forth. So then they felt like doing a program. And then we had another invisible leadership program for the next line. Yeah, so this is how created and inspired them. I think what really helps is inspiring, and it is only through actions. So this is in short that I could say, which worked for us. And today we have so many behavioral programs, and most of them behavior and soft skills, and most of them want to participate. They really want to enhance to where they are to where they want to be. And those conversations, those meaningful conversations are created between HR, between the manager, and between the person. So this is how I could create that. And also in my previous organization, that's what I did. And it worked for me. So far, I'm successful. Thank you.
Sure. Thanks, Anu. And since not much of the time is left out and all, so one last question that I'll be asking, which is given across by the speakers itself. And Nikhil, it's for you. What are the learning and the development activities? Any examples of the development opportunities that you can cite about?
Great. One of the interesting topic to talk about. So the most important thing here when it comes to learning opportunity is to identification of the lateral or a vertical movement or a growth the individual is looking at. And then once that is identified, we also then identify the missing or lesser known competencies of that individual. Then further, we goes to creating a development path for that individual where we talk about a step-by-step development activities and which are typically being divided into, things like management development, maybe something to a soft skill or a technical competency, or maybe a leadership competency, or as basic as doing a certain level of self-development activity. Once that's defined, taking a buy-in of that individual, the most critical part when it comes to the entire journey. Once that's defined, then we start talking upon specific training and upskilling programs. Few examples which I can talk about is what the one of my speakers was talking about, an action learning, fantastic way of doing it. Sheetal talked about appreciative inquiry. It's more about self-development, working towards growth of individual. Uh, Coaching is something which is picking up very, very fast, because again, as I was talking about, for a self-development, it is extremely important to work towards inner development. It should come from inside and not just something which is coming from outside. So that's another activity which we talk about. And the entire activities has to be very specifically planned out on a chart, and those chart and the activities has to be find in a specific and tracked very well. That's the only way the development plans of an individuals can be achieved. Uh, that's what I would like to talk about.
Sure. Thanks, Nikhil, for sharing all the wonderful examples that you have given across. And since we are moving ahead of, like, I think finally we are able to do the things on time, but I can see a lot many people dropping out. So I don't want others to sleep onto this discussion. So Payal, it's all over to you. You can concede from here.
Yeah, thank you, Pragya. And it was quite an insightful session and listening to all our eminent leaders. Without taking much of time, I would now like to request Mr. Govind Singh Negi, our founder, to please express his thoughts and a vote of thanks. Over to you, Govind.
Yeah, well, I think being a global L&D professional myself, I think this conversation is really great. And there are so many things which people have always confused about L&D. And I think this particular webinar will help them to find answers to them. And also the YouTube video series was meant for it. I have seen each and every video myself, and those are really, really insightful. So anybody who is really willing to learn about learning and development and wanted to exercise this skill, I think this is a great place to go. I would like to maybe kind of touch upon one question which been asked by one of the audience member, is that how can we, make sure that people are not resisting towards joining the behavioral trainings? And I think that's the crux, and a lot of L&D professionals struggle through that. What we try to do is we try to pull people to the training programs as opposed to creating an environment where people really come forward and like to join. And I think all the speakers who have said all the things is the key. You have to create that environment. You have to make sure what you are delivering as development is not what your organization charter looks like. It is what your people need. If you are able to touch upon that, I think you will never have a problem of people making a resistance or low attendance and ROI and all that stuff. So I think if one thing you want to take away from this webinar is this, to create that work culture of learning and development. With that said, first of all, thank you, Payal, for hosting it so beautifully, and Pragya for moderating it and keeping us honest towards the time there. And all the speakers, I'm a big fan of you, looking at your videos, and if we can get opportunities to talk often, I'm really looking forward to that. But thank you very much, and I'm sure this was a great platform for all the people who have joined us and must have got some value out of it. So thank you very much once again.